press the bell icon on our YouTube app and never miss another video from SpotboyE.
You have seen her before in Cocktail and Happy Bhag Jayegi, and now she is back with two back-to-back films, Parmanu and Lucknow Central. So let's have a chat with Diana Penty.
Hi.
So to begin with, I want to know, why do we see so less of you on screen?
I mean, you're going to be seeing me twice this year,
yeah.
so I think I've made up for all the
lost
little you've
4
seen,
years.
the absence in the last few years. But I mean, there was no conscious decision to be seen less or any of that, because I get asked that question a lot. I guess it just, it's just the way it is and the way it worked out. It took a little while to find what I wanted to do next. But now that I feel I've got like a momentum going. 2 films in a year is not a bad thing, and hopefully next year will be as productive as this year. So hopefully you'll be seeing me much more now.
So do you think you're choosy when selecting the scripts?
I don't know if choosy is the right word. It's just that personally you have certain goals in mind, or there are certain things you would rather do than not do. Certain likes and dislikes, and that's how I've gone about deciding what script I want to do next or what film I want to do next. But I just feel like I want to relate to the story. For me, the story is the most important thing. It should be appealing and interesting and riveting, and I usually put myself in the place of the audience when I'm reading a script, and I'm like, is this a film or a story that I would go to the theater to watch?
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I feel like it needs to be something different than what's already being done. Otherwise, it's the same old thing and it can get boring. Okay. So that's one thing that I look for when choosing to do a film next. And secondly is the character that I get to play, or in terms of I want it to be different as much as possible from the last few that I've done. Again, what's the point of playing the same thing over and over again? So to find those few, things that you have in mind, at least personally for yourself, might sometimes take a while, sometimes not. So happened that I read 2 scripts back to back a couple of months ago, and both turned out to be, stories that I really felt and wanted to do. Okay. So hopefully that trend will continue.
Okay, I specifically asked you about the choosy part because there's a thing that people keep on saying, that if you are very choosy with the script, at times the producers become choosy with you after a certain point of time. Do you believe that happens? Like producers are taking their time to come to you because they think you're choosy?
I don't know if that's the case really. I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, if somebody feels that you fit a part or you fit a script, really well, they will eventually, hopefully, approach you for it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if that's how it works. It hasn't been something that's crossed my mind so far. I usually go with the feel and I go with the flow, and when I'm reading something, it's like almost a gut feeling that tells me, this is something you should be part of and it's something you should do, and I go for it. Like it's as simple as that actually. Okay. So there's not like all this thought and agenda and that goes on in my mind. You don't put a lot
of thought into before, while selecting the script. What's the thought process when you, as you're saying about a lot of thought process goes into the film? So what is your take when you're selecting the script?
What I mentioned before is that the script and the story needs to be, is something that would appeal to me, that I would relate to, or something that I find exciting. Because if I'm going to commit myself to doing a project, which is, it's not like a one-day project. Yeah, a film takes a while, like a couple of months, sometimes goes into a year, even more. You need to be 100% committed. You need to be 100% interested and, buy it. Otherwise, you're obviously not going to give it your best. So the story is most important, and the character that one would play is obviously the second most important thing, because I would always hope to do films where the character, the woman has something of substance to do and is not just there for the heck of being there. You want, whether it doesn't matter if it's a big role or a small role, even if it's a small role, as long as it's a significant role or something that can help take the story forward. That's something that I would look for when deciding to do a film.
So let me begin by asking, what about Lucknow Central? How did that film happen? How did that offer come by?
So I happened to meet Nikhil Advani once in his office, and he gave me literally like a one-liner, very briefly, about what Lucknow Central was about. And for some reason, it just got me really intrigued, and I wanted to know more. But he said, "Oh, you come back the next day and you meet Ranjit and let him take you through the story," because it was his story. Yeah. Ranjit Tiwari's, he came across this article a few years ago and decided to make this into a film. So I met Ranjit the next day and he narrated the whole story to me. And again, like I said, it was like a gut, like an instinct feeling where I was just like, oh, I really want to be part of this. You know, it would be great if I could play this character. So I was really hoping it would work out, and it did. So that was literally, again, it just kind of happened over a period of 2 days when I met Nikhil and then Ranjit, and they were like, yeah, okay, you're on for this film. And it was a bit different story. It's not something that, you know, gets made every day, like a film based on jail life and, you know, jailbreak and music and a whole bunch of elements to this one film. And I felt again that the character, it gave me the opportunity to play a character I've not played before. You know, I played quiet, shy, Demure, Meera and Cocktail, and then I played like this completely loud, bubbly, you know, spontaneous character and happy. And Gayatri Kashyap in Lucknow Central is neither of the two. She's kind of very measured, very balanced, kind of take the best part of both those original characters and put her, you know, into this. She was a strong woman in a predominantly male world. In this case, the world being a jail, you know, where she's dealing with inmates on a regular basis, dealing with jail authorities, dealing with cops, law enforcement. So it's like being the only woman in this, you know, male-dominated world, where she has to prove her point, you know, make herself heard, make sure she's not taken for a ride, make sure she's not pushed over. So a certain kind of silent strength to her, you know, and while at the same time being this balanced individual, headstrong, all of that. So it just gave me an opportunity to do something I've not done before.
And what is the character like? What is the profession that she has in the film?
So Gayatri Kashyap is an NGO worker, and she believes strongly in reformation of criminals. She feels that they should be given first of all, they should be treated decently while in jail, and she feels like, you know, the sentence itself is the punishment, but other than that, they have certain rights, you know, as human beings, and they should be given the opportunity, or basically like a second chance to life once they're out of jail. So for whatever it is that they're in for, sure, you know, she completely believes that they need to be punished for whatever it is, the crime that they've done. But once they finish their punishment and their sentence, they should be given the chance to live a normal life once they're out of jail, you know, to reintegrate into society, maybe earn a living for themselves. So her job while they're in jail is to help them reform by, you know, teaching them certain vocations, whether it's in this case music, but, you know, other kinds of jobs could be carpentry, or basically a skill set, so that, or even impart education to them for the ones who are interested in learning, so that when they're out, they have the opportunity to, you know, get jobs or work or earn a living for themselves.
And talking about the jail aspect of it, have you personally been to a jail before this, like,
no.
forever?
Thank God. No, I haven't. We did now recently.
You recently went.
Yeah, we went.
On a jail visit. Yeah. How was that experience?
It was really quite something. Like you said, I've never been to jail before. So I didn't know what to expect really, and I was not sure how to feel about it as well. You know, the environment and like I didn't know what it was going to be like, but it was pleasantly. I mean, it was surprisingly very calm, and we went to Yerwada first, and first of all, it's a beautiful property, you know, just the gardens and the approach, and very well maintained and clean, and then when we actually met the inmates, we didn't really interact with them, but we all gathered in this kind of setup where they had a stage, and the inmates were like the audience, and, you know, we performed for them, they performed for us, and it was really quite sweet, and it was touching actually, because, you know, they live those lives, but yet they have this, you know, Josh, if you want to call it, and, you know, they're so upbeat and positive and very well behaved, you know, very disciplined. So it was overall a great experience, and also felt good to know that, you know, there's so many jails across the country that are taking these initiatives to reform prisoners, and we got to see that firsthand, because, you know, there were a few of them that performed for us, like sang for us, and, you know, so it was like an uplifting, inspiring experience.
Okay. And while shooting, during the process of shooting the film, did you all ever interact, or the shooting, did it entail like you all going to a real location, into a real jail, and interacting with inmates during that time?
No, it didn't actually, because all the jail scenes that we did on a set in Film City, a very beautifully built set, which was so real that honestly we forgot that we were not really in a jail, because every time we'd walk on set, you know, it would be like, it was just so real, and every like detail, you know, to the T. But we never really shot in, you know, a jail, and I guess that would not be it would not be easy to do that with permission.
There have been films before also where people have done. So okay, so Lucknow Central done. How did Parmanu come by?
Parmanu, again, I was reading the script and it was one of those scripts that, you know, I just kept turning the pages faster and faster because I wanted to know what happened next. It was very thrilling, very exciting. It's a time-based, like a time-bound script. So it was short, crisp. I thought it was perfectly written. And so then that's when I, you know, met Prerna Arora from Kriyaj.
Yeah.
And so we got talking and then I met Abhishek Sharma, who's the director.
Yeah.
And so I sat with him a couple of times, you know, asked him how much of the script is real, how much has been added, you know, for the sake of the film. And a lot of it was based on fact. Most of it was fact, actually. I'd say about 80% is fact. And there's so many things that, you know, I was discovering along the way that we've always heard about the nuclear test that India undertook in '98. But we don't know the details about it and how the mission actually happened and, you know, what the little intricacies were about it. And that was educating for me in a way because, you know, I learned that along the way while reading the script and I found it very, very interesting, especially an event like this that has literally changed the history of our nation and, you know, made us a nuclear power. And so I wanted to be able to be part of that story and telling the story to the rest of the country and to the world, you know, things that they don't really know about. And like I said, it was just a beautifully written script and Abhishek has directed it really well and it looks lovely because we've shot in, you know, all the real locations. We shot in Pokhran, we shot in Jaisalmer, the sand dunes, and so it's quite spectacular looking. And it's a very crisp, quick kind of film. So it's thrilling and it's, you know, it's got all the elements of, I think it's something that people would like to see.
Okay, and talking about the duration of the parts in both the films, which one was a much larger part among these two films, Lucknow Central and Parmanu?
You mean my part?
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, how do you know, sometimes the way it is on paper is not necessarily the way it translates on screen.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes for the better, sometimes not, but also you can't always judge based on script. So I can't really answer that question. I'd say they're probably both approximately the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talking about your co-stars, like Farhan Akhtar in this case in Lucknow Central, he has been a director, so like he comes with his own directorial set of mind when he's acting. And John Abraham has been there for like 20-25 years, he's almost there. So how kind of a difference do you feel like when a director is like acting in front of you? Do you find like playing a character opposite them, do you find any difference playing there?
Not really, because Farhan never came in onto set as being a director. He was in this case in Lucknow Central an actor, and you know, he left the direction entirely to Ranjit, and we actually saw that. I mean, a lot of people were asking him in interviews and stuff, you know, how did you feel being a director? Did you ever give your input? And he never did. He never interfered, and I think that was really great. He respected. In fact, I guess being a director himself, it was easier for him to respect, you know, giving the actual director his space and not interfering, which is what he did. And so for me, it was he was my co-actor. Like, you know, I didn't see him as coming in with like direction goals in mind for this film at least.
And what about John? How was he as a co-star?
He was great. He's really down to earth, very normal, and he's, you know, always making jokes and, you know, about everybody on set. And so he's basically, it's a very happy set. Everyone's always laughing, you know, it's nice. It was really nice working with him as well.
And going a bit away from the film, on your personal level, so like you stay far off from the actual hullabaloo of Bollywood where people go around every evening, there's a party or something happening, you stay quite away. So like, how do you manage to interact with the celebs there, and how does your equation work with your friends in Bollywood, if you have?
I mean, I feel like I've had some really great working equations with everybody that I've worked with so far. You know, I've been lucky enough to be part of setups that, you know, where everyone's on the same page, you know, everyone's very warm, friendly, have always made me feel comfortable and at home. So it's been enriching. Each experience from cocktail right up to now has been enriching.
What I meant to ask was like, you stay quite away from say the interacting part after the film.
I travel there whenever I have to travel, no? Means I have to go from here to Goregaon every day when I'm shooting, which is like a good 2 hours sometimes. But yeah, I mean, in Bombay I feel like everything's now become a small world, you know, it doesn't matter where you live anymore.
Okay. And talking about other stuff, you also did a shoot with Alia and Ranveer Singh recently for an ad, and right after that shoot there were like rumors that you three are doing a film together, like there's talks of a film with all three of you together. How true of that is?
I never read any of that.
There was a lot of rumors saying that that three of them are being thought of for a film. So
oh no, this is the first time I'm hearing it.
Okay. So, and after this, what after these two films? You said that you have a lot of lineup for the next year. What after this are you
I
planning?
said I hope next year will be as productive as this year. But I'm reading a bunch of scripts, you know, some very interesting ones, and so hopefully there will be something soon. I've not locked on anything yet to be able to talk about it yet, but I feel like next year will be interesting as well.
Okay, so I have just two more questions about, like, you have been a model before you started acting. So what kind of a difference do you feel about like films and modeling? What kind of a difference do you feel there?
Completely different worlds. You know, just the nature of the job itself is different. As a model, you know, you're maybe working for a designer at a show, or you know, you're modeling certain clothes, or maybe a brand if you're doing a print shoot. But it's a one-day job. You start in the morning, you're done by the evening. You know, it's 8 hours, 9 hours, whatever it is. Whereas the film, obviously, like, you know, you're telling a story. It's, you know, it can go into months, it can go into years sometimes. So the level of involvement and commitment is way more, and it's also way more demanding, both physically, emotionally, mentally, all of them, because you're getting in under the skin of a character. You're getting into a character. You have to play a different person other than yourself. You know, so there's dialogues. It's a bunch of. You're telling a story. And that's obviously going to be completely different from modeling clothes, you know. So
a lot of people tell about this, what you actually mentioned about getting into the skin of character. A lot of people actually say that we take a lot from the film after we do the film. Has any of your characters ever been like that you have taken a lot from that character?
You know, honestly, because I feel like Happy in Happy Bhag Jayegi was so far removed from what I am in real life. A lot of times I didn't relate to that character because, you know, I kept wondering, why is she yelling all the time? You know, why is she so excited? Why is she like, why can't she just sit calmly, think for a second and then talk? But she was the opposite, right? She was a very spontaneous, very spunky. First, whatever came to her mind, she said without like no filter, nothing. So that character for me was so different and so far removed from anything that I'm familiar with, that I think it took me the longest to get into that character. And then once I was into that character, it took me the longest to get out of it. So
because you're not that in real life.
Yeah, so you know, just from small little things like, you know, my prep involved talking to people really loudly. So now this is my normal voice, but I would be talking like this, you know, just for the sake of getting into the character of Happy, because she talks like this on a regular basis. So just stuff like that was very different for me, but it also stuck. You know, because once you're done shooting after maybe 8-9 months, whatever it is, it takes a while to undo those things and to go back to what you were, and you know, it takes a little bit. So I noticed myself like getting angry more often, or like, you know, fighting with people for stupid small things that it would never have bothered me before. Okay. So I think I probably took the most from that character, and it probably had the most impact on me. Anyway, now back to my normal self.
Okay. And you mentioned about Happy Bhag Jayegi. There's a sequel of Happy Bhag Jayegi that's in the talks, and Sonakshi is being talked for that. Were you ever approached, or you ever...
This you have to ask the makers of Happy Bhag Jayegi, namely Anand L. Rai and Mudassar Aziz.
You were never in the scheme, you never called up people?
You have to ask Anand L. Rai.
Okay. So, talking about calling up people, there's a thing in Bollywood where people say that if you call up more people and you're there with them, you're there in the news always, so you start getting more and more offers because you're always there in the news. Do you believe in that concept?
There's two things you just said. One is being there in the news and one is calling up people. Yeah. Which one is the question?
Both of them.
I guess maybe to a certain extent it helps, you know, to be a certain amount of recall, but and being relevant as well. If you're completely alienated and people don't, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? Yeah, people will forget, and that's human nature, and that's something you have to accept. But having said that, I also feel that, you know, if a filmmaker feels that you would fit a certain part or a certain character in particular, they still will, you know, reach out to you or approach you. And if you can prove yourself with each film, as each film goes by, if you can prove yourself, you know, and if you can better yourself, I feel like that will somehow reflect in terms of, it is at the end of the day, if you can prove your talent and you prove yourself in terms of your performance, you know, you will get more and more work. So hard work at the end of the day is the key, more than making phone calls and being in the news.
So you are not there on the phone call business, you don't generally call up people. I'm assuming that from your answer.
I mean, if I know somebody well enough and I'm, you know, have worked with them and I'm friends with them, then yes, of course, you keep in touch after. It's not like you do a film and then you fall off the planet. But
like, do you approach people for
No, I have a manager for that. So I prefer not to get into that space, you know. It's more like you keep you keep equations going, you keep, you build relationships along the way, and it's important to keep those relationships. It's just because you finish working on a project, that doesn't mean you just fall off the planet.
Okay.
So, and people along the way, you work equations also become, you become friends with people.
True.
So you would be in touch with your friend either way, whether there's work or no work, right? So that's pretty much how you treat it in Bollywood as well. At least I do.
There's a new trend of actors going into web series and doing a lot of short films and all. So are you ever open to doing web films and short films and web series?
I've not really given it much thought, but I've sometimes when I do think about it, I think why not? Because there's so much good content out there, especially on the web, and with Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these various portals, that it just gives you such a great opportunity to express yourself, not just to a small audience or not just to the country, but to the whole world. Because there's so many shows, like there's Korean shows that I've watched online, or there's like Israeli shows that I watched online. It doesn't matter anymore. It's kind of like language is not a barrier anymore. You watch good content with subtitles. It's a great way to, I feel, if you want to express yourself, and if you want to be out there more, and if you want to prove to the world that we have great cinema and content as well, and I feel like it's going in that direction. So it would be something interesting to consider.
Okay, and you mentioned,
and there's a lot of good filmmakers also now that are associating themselves with these web series. So it's a win-win all the way.
Okay. And you mentioned just now about this, the audience is also, like the audience for a web series is vast. Do you think audience in general have changed over the years? Like you started off in 2012, which is not too far off, but when you started with a film like Cocktail, and now, do you think, because a lot of these web series and web films have started over the past couple of years and they have gained a lot of audience groups, so do you think the audiences, they are growing in terms of...
Are you referring to the Indian audiences? Yeah, I think for sure there's been a change in what the audience wants these days. The audience, I feel, can't be fooled anymore. True. They're looking for different films. They're looking for better content. You can't give them something mediocre anymore and expect them to lap it up and say, oh wow, because I think the audience now, the feedback has become so strong, and I think that it's important as actors and as filmmakers to sit up and take notice of that and to pay attention to what they want. But it is definitely changing. If you've noticed, there's way more content-driven films. Yeah. And when I say content, I don't mean that it has to be some niche, arty kind of indie cinema kind of films. I'm saying just even commercial films can be better content-driven and have the balance of both, commercial and good quality cinema, and that seems to be happening a lot. And if you've noticed, at least I've noticed, that a lot of films these days have women as lead central characters. True. Playing
you
the
played a
essential
lead character, central character in Happy Bhansai, which was quite a different thing.
So that, and it's not just that films like that are being made, but it's also that the audiences are liking films like that, and they're doing well, those films. So which obviously means that there's been a shift, in what the audience wants and what they're enjoying and what they like, and it's just great for us. I mean, it's a great opportunity to, be able to play different parts, to be able to tell different stories, and not be stuck in this little, kind of rule of, okay, you have to make this kind of film where there have to be so many songs and then there has to be so many dances and have to be some choreography. I feel like that's changing now. There's no fixed rules anymore.
Okay, and all the very best for Lucknow Central and Parmanu.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that what you said, like next year you'll have a lot more films. So I'm hoping
fingers crossed. Let's hope.
So I'm hoping that we'll get to meet you a lot more often than we have been in the past 4 or 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and all the very best.